right, well, welcome everyone again to the Thesis and Dissertation Formatting Workshop with Dr. Jennifer Stevens. That's really all I have to say. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Dr. Stevens. Thank you so much for being here and take it away.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. Like I say, I am a grad rebel writing boot camp graduate. So um, good luck to all of you. I definitely know how hard it can be to get all of these final papers written and everything. So hopefully this will give you a little bit of advice and kind of clarify some questions you have about the formatting process for the theses and dissertations for the grad college. And we'll just go ahead and jump right in. So today we're going to go over a few things. I'm going to go over preparing for your format review. So what exactly it is you should be doing with your document before you submit it. We'll go over some resources that will help you properly format your document, go over when and how to submit once you're ready for that official review. I'll talk a little bit about the actual review process. What does that look like? How long will it take, and all of these good things. And then I'll also talk about how your reviewer will give you feedback if you do have corrections and what that process is like. And then some steps that you can take once the format review is completed. And then at the end, I'll go over briefly some of the most common formatting issues that we see during the format reviews. So, when you're getting ready to think about the review process, this typically happens after your defense, so your thesis, dissertation, or doctoral project. After you have your final defense, most students will have some type of edits that your committee will require. So you'll want to go ahead and make sure you implement all their feedback. And before you even think about sending that in, we want you to have like the most final document that you can have. Then you're going to go and take your document and check it with our resources, and I'll go over some of those just to see what changes you would have to make in order to get formatting approval. And then finally, you'll go ahead and make those edits to your document before you submit. So what are some of the resources we have available for you all? We try and do a good job of offering different types of resources. So we have some formatting manuals, a whole variety of different PDFs, and I'll go through each of these really quick. But these are our main tools that we give students to kind of help through the process. So first we have our formatting manuals. And I sent the PowerPoint to Alyssa, so hopefully all of you can get that. These are hyperlinked right here, so if you have it, you can just click on it. If you're going through the PowerPoint with me, or you can click on it later. But this will take you to the main graduate college thesis and dissertation website. And as you see on the bottom right there, lots and lots of manuals. So there's 14 different manuals there. Try not to get too overwhelmed and look at them all first is my advice to students. It can be kind of overwhelming to see all of those. Maybe start with the cover page or whatever section it is that you're working on, right? If you have questions on how your table of contents should be, maybe take a look at that formatting manual. But you definitely don't need to like sit down and take a look at each and every one, just whatever you have questions on. But this can be found on that main page under number 5, organization of thesis and dissertation. And we even include some manuals on there, like the most common formatting issues. So definitely check out that website if you have not yet. And then the latest addition to our formatting resources is our YouTube videos. We have 3 or 4 now, but these give you kind of a visual as you're walking through. So the PDF, it just lays it out for you in text. And then here in the videos, if you're more of a visual learner, you can go ahead and take a look at those. We have most of the front half of the document covered, so like your cover page, copyright, and abstract, and we're kind of just building those out as we go. But these are really helpful because you can actually see me doing it in real time. So if you have it open while you're working on your document, you can kind of pause it and do those changes as you're going through. And then finally, I always tell students, and I recommend making an appointment for the thesis and dissertation formatting office hours. If you have, let's say, a document with a lot of maybe tables and figures and you're concerned, or if you just want us to take a look at it before you submit and see if there's anything big that stands out that's going to need to be addressed, that would be a good thing to do. And you can always contact us. I have the email address here at the bottom, grad.tv@unlv.edu. And our appointments are typically Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. But I do, like I say, I've been in your shoes and I know how difficult it can be sometimes especially if you're working and things like that. So we always try and work with student schedules and try and, find a time that we can meet up together and kind of go over any questions you might have one-on-one. Or let's say you're working on your page numbers, for example, and you just can't get it. I can do a meeting with you and kind of walk you through it, and we'll do it together on there. So that's always an option. And then when in doubt, always send us an email. So in case you just have a quick question, and it can be about formatting, it can be about, the paperwork that will need to be in at the end. But either way, you can always either email that grad TD inbox or go ahead and send me an email, jennifer.stevens@unlv.edu. And always more than happy to go over any questions you might have on the whole process. All right. So once you've taken a look at all of these different resources you have your document, and you've kind of gone through and think you have it in pretty good shape to submit. This is how you will submit your final document. You'll go to that main thesis and dissertation website again. We have it linked there again for you. And then you're going to go down to number 10 on there on that front page, and it'll say format review. And so when you click on that hyperlink that says submission website, it will take you to a Google Sheet where you're going to fill out some information, your name and sheet, all that good stuff, and then upload the PDF of your final document. And then once that's in, that document gets sent out to one of the reviewers on our team, and we use a checklist just like you see here. And this is also available on our website. But one important thing I always tell students about the checklist is don't worry about reading each line of the checklist. That's mostly for the reviewer. And so that there's transparency that you know what we're looking at. But whenever your reviewer will send you your revisions, they're always going to put the number of the section right here under that. Please see the comments in this section, and it's numbered 1 through 10. So for example, if it has like 1, 3, and 5 on there, you'll just go to the bottom of section 1, and they do a really good job of laying out exactly what it is you need to do. So they'll say something like, please make sure all your headings are centered and bold so they are consistent, or something like that. But they'll always tell you exactly what needs to be fixed in order to get approval. And typically it's about a 4 business day turnaround from once your reviewer receives your paper to when you'll get some feedback. And then you kind of just go back and forth via email until all of these different revisions are corrected and where it needs to be. So like I say, you'll go back and forth with your reviewer, and they'll keep letting you know, oh, make sure you fix this or that. And hopefully, since you all are so aware of this and trying to be prepared, it will be a quick process, maybe just 1 or 2 rounds. But don't feel bad. Even for my dissertation, I was doing this role for a while, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have perfect formatting. It's going to be awesome, no mistakes. And I even had a round of revisions. So it's always helpful to have, that fresh set of eyes checking it. And we have a great team. They're very thorough. And one other thing I always tell students is the whole point of this formatting process is that, you know, you've all done so much hard work to complete this paper, your thesis, your dissertation. So we want to make sure that that final product is as professional looking as possible, right? If you're sending it out to colleagues, or if someone's looking up your paper online for their own research, we want it to reflect that professionalization and all the time and effort that you've put into it. So you'll go back and forth via email with your reviewer. And then once everything looks good, you'll receive an email like this, letting you know that you've received format approval, everything is great. And when we send out that email, we CC your RPC coordinator on there. So that stands for Retention Progression Completion. And these are the individuals in the grad college that make sure you have all your paperwork in. So your culminating experience form, your committee form, all those good things that are found on Grad Rebel Gateway. Uh, we put them on there so that they can check and see that you have everything in, and then they'll go ahead and insert your approval page after your cover page, and then send that to you just to verify that everyone's names are correct, everything looks good to go. And then once you email them and tell them, yep, everything looks great, then they will send you the instructions for how to upload your final document to ProQuest. And as it says there at the bottom, this is the very, very final step, right? So all of these different hoops you're jumping through. And then once you get to upload that to ProQuest, you're done. You've done everything for the graduation requirements, and you can breathe and actually get to celebrate and enjoy. So very exciting step for that reason. So that's kind of the quick run through of what the formatting process is, kind of how long it takes, and what that back and forth looks like. And now I just wanted to go over three of the main formatting issues that we see at the grad college. And again, it's not necessarily that it's super hard or difficult. It's just like for the cover page, there's a very specific order to things that they want to follow. And the reason for that is they want it to be very consistent for all UNLV students. So if I'm looking up, you know, one of your papers on there, the cover page should be pretty similar to another UNLV student who graduated last year, just for, again, that kind of professional look. And then page numbers, this is, you know, it's not that it is terribly difficult, but I found that most students have never had to do these page numbers. And we'll go through it, but basically the front half of the document is going to be lowercase Roman numerals for the page numbering, and then Arabic numerals are going to start on chapter 1. So it's just kind of a unique situation for some students that they haven't had to do before. So I'm going to run through how you set that up really quickly. And then the other main problem students usually have is if you have tables and figures in your document, the proper spacing. And again, it's not really that hard. It's just making sure that you go through so that it's all consistent. And I find it's a lot easier, or it makes a lot more sense when you're seeing it in a run through like this or during an office hours meeting than just reading even the manual, because it sounds a lot more difficult and confusing than it is. But really it's quite simple. So hopefully this will be helpful for some of you. All right, so this is the cover page. And as you can see, you know, there's all these different sections and they want it laid out very specifically. So you're gonna have your title at the very top in all caps. That's the only thing that will be double spaced if it's more than one line. You're gonna have by, and then your name as it's listed on My UNLV. So that's an important thing to note, because a lot of people might go by nicknames or their middle name, things like that. So if you go on and check your My UNLV, if it's not how you'd like it, you can always correct correct it on there. But that's where they're going to take your name for your cover page, your paperwork, and your diploma. So make sure to go on my UNLV and check that your name is how you'd like it to show there. Okay, then you're going to have your previous degrees you've received in chronological order. And again, the format is the, type of degree, so Bachelor of Arts, and then what it's in, sociology, psychology. Then the institution will go on the next line, and then followed by the year. And so we have a lot of good examples of the cover page stuff. So just maybe take a look at the manual or YouTube video when you're doing this, just to make sure everything is in the right order. And then every cover page is going to have this line, and it's split in half, and the O of is lowercase. So that's one that always kind of gets messed up too. So it'll say a dissertation submitted or thesis submitted in partial fulfillment. And then on the second line, of the requirements for the, and then on the next line, you're going to have the degree you're receiving. And then you're going to have your department, college, and the graduate college. And then on the very last section, you're going to have UNLV listed like that, with make sure you have the comma after Nevada. That's the one that's missing sometimes. And then the year, the month and year. And you always want to put the month that your degree is being conferred. So everyone who's graduating in the summer will put August. If you're graduating in spring, you'll put May. And if you're graduating in the fall, you'll put December. So even if you had your defense in a different month, you're always going to want to put the month of graduation there. So just a couple little tips for that. And now page numbers, you see I put a couple little faces on here. I see a lot of these confused faces, and definitely don't feel bad if you are confused when you get to this point. It is a very common area for mistakes to happen, but not too hard if it's on your radar. So first, just a couple of little notes about the page numbering. Your abstract, everyone's abstract has to begin on lowercase Roman numeral 3. And then all of the pages in the front half. So that's going to be like your abstract, acknowledgments, dedication, table of contents, all of those sections before the chapter 1. Those are all going to have lowercase Roman numerals. And then starting at your first chapter, that's when you're going to begin Arabic numerals. And so this is a quick little run through of how to get those page numbers set up. So the first thing you have to do in order to make it so that you can have the two different types of page numbers is put section breaks in your document. And if you're in Word, if you go to Insert Breaks, it'll have all the different types of breaks, right? It'll be like page break, section break, next page, section break, a different kind of section break. But you'll want to use the section break next page. And you're either going to put that on your cover page, or if some students choose to include a copyright page, it's not necessary. But if you do, you'll want to put it after that also. And then finally, you're going to put a section break the page before chapter 1 begins. So if that's your table of contents, or if it's your list of figures, whatever that last page before chapter 1, you're also going to use one of those section breaks. And so this is kind of small, but don't worry, we'll zoom in. But especially if you have it on your own computer, you can kind of take a look. But what I really wanted to show you here is this is what it will look like once you have those breaks in. So that first page is the cover page. And if you hit the paragraph button in Word, it will show, all the different spaces there, and show you where all the breaks are. So this, for our example here, that first page is cover page. You have your section break, then you have your abstract, table of contents, another section break, and then our chapter 1 begins. So I'll kind of zoom in on that a little bit so you can kind of see. But just, I wanted to give you kind of a visual of where exactly those breaks should be in there. Okay, and then once you have those page breaks inserted, section breaks inserted, Now this is kind of the easy part, if you will. So you'll just click anywhere on that abstract page down at the bottom. And then when you click insert and then page numbers, these two dialog boxes will pop up. So here is where you're going to edit, if you want the page number to the right or centered, that kind of thing. And we always want it to be on the bottom and centered. And always click that checkbox down there that says show number on first page, because that's where we're going to begin. And then once you click that format button there, this second dialog page will pop up. And this is how you change your page numbers to those lowercase Roman numerals. So this is something that, again, most students have not had to do before. So you'll go in there up to number format, click on lowercase Roman numerals, and then down at the bottom there, start at lowercase Roman numeral 3. And then you'll hit save on there. And then once you do that, now you should see that you'll have your abstract starting on the lowercase Roman numeral 3. And like I mentioned before, all of those subsequent sections after that will have the lowercase Roman numeral formatting, just like that. And then final step of the page numbers. Now you're going to go to the first page of chapter 1. Click anywhere on that page. And again, you're going to do the same thing, insert page numbers. And then this time, instead of clicking the lowercase Roman numerals, you'll click the Arabic numerals, and you do want it to start on number 1. Some students, get confused because they'll put it on like page 7, let's say, if that's the 7th page. But they always want that front half to be the lowercase numbering, and then starting page 1 with chapter 1. And then one tip, if for some reason it messes up or something's not right, one kind of troubleshooting tip is to make sure that the box up at the top that says link to previous section, make sure that is not checked, because if it's trying to link it to that other section, it's going to want to make that page number, like I say, like 6 or 7 or whatever the next page would be. So if you have any problems, just make sure to check that that is not selected. All right, and the final big formatting thing I'm going to go over today, or show you all before we see if you have any questions, is table and figure spacing. So this example is from our table and figure manual that you can find on the website there. And the main thing with the tables and figures is that if there is text above it or below it, they want 2 double-spaced blank lines. Or you might see it written as 2 double-spaced line breaks. So again, it's not really that hard. You would just go to the end of that sentence, since it's already, your text is already going to be double spaced, and you'll just hit enter or return twice. And then you'll have your table, and then underneath it, if there's another table or more text, you're just going to do 2 more double spaced blank lines. And again, if you're looking at it, your document, like 1 page at a time, it might seem kind of weird, or you might feel like, wow, this is a lot of space in between. But the reason, it's a rule from the publisher, and it does make it look a lot cleaner and nicer in that final version. So just make sure you go through and check that all of these different sections in between your tables and figures have the 2 double-spaced line breaks. And then one note that's kind of like a common question that comes up, your table or figure title and number is considered part of the actual table. So you'll want that. And if you have any notes, right, some students will have a couple of lines of notes under their table or figure. That's considered part of the actual table as well, or figure. So you'll want to do the spacing after that, or not include that. All right. So that is the most common formatting mistakes that I have seen and gone through in my experience here. But I wanted to make sure we have enough time. Like if anyone has like specific questions they could think of, or any kind of issues they might think would be a problem, like when you go to do your formatting.
Dr. Stevens, we do have a
Yes.
specific question in the Q&A.
Oh, yes.
Um, so using an online, I don't know this tool, excuse me, LaTeX
Oh, yes.
editor
Latex. Uh-huh.
to generate a PDF version of my dissertation, do you require me to provide my dissertation in a Word or Google Doc version, or will the PDF be okay?
Perfect. Yes. And LaTeX, that is a common formatting program. Typically, like students will be in like math or computer science or something like that. They use those if you have like a lot of formulas and stuff sometimes. But good question. So no, the only thing we'll ever want from you for the grad college is the PDF version. And actually, LaTeX, there's um, a couple things that you don't have to do because it won't let you in the program. So for one, the table and figure spacing, it won't let you have those two double spaced line breaks, but we know that. And for that reason, when you go to submit your document through the portal, originally, one of the questions it will ask you as you're filling out all the different information is, have you used LaTeX software to create your document? So you'll just click yes on that. And then that way your reviewer will know, okay, this person cannot do the spacing for their thing. And so they'll know to kind of skip over that. But in general, all of the other formatting rules stay the same. It's just that the program, due to the nature of that program, it won't let you have that extra spacing. So just be sure to check that, yes, you're using LaTeX software when you go to submit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If anyone else has questions, please feel welcome to unmute or type them in the chat.
Yeah, for sure. And I know it's kind of hard because it's like you're thinking all of these things and then you're hearing all this information and it's kind of like a lot coming at you at once. So even if you can't think of any questions right now, if a week from now or next month or whenever, like I say, if something comes to you and you're not sure or you just want to double check, just give me an email, send me an email or that grad TD inbox. Usually I'm the one answering that. So it's basically like having two emails. But oh, another thing that I thought of in the meantime, now that we brought up the LaTeX software, is if you're an English student. So there's a couple of different um like I say, rules or things that are done like a little bit differently with English students, particularly with creative writing. So, for example, if you are a creative writing student, most likely you're not going to have a references section at the end because it's all your original work. So when you take a look at the document formatting manual on there that is for required sections, you might see that, but there should be a note on there like creative, not required for creative writing or things like that. So if you do think there's, something as you're going through the formatting material, if there's something that you think, might be different because of your discipline or you're not sure how to do it because of your discipline, again, always just reach out. But I think the main advice I would give to students, if I had to, about like this whole formatting process is the earlier you kind of get started in thinking about it, the less stressful it is. So it really only becomes, I think, stressful for students when they get to the very end, you've had your defense and you think like you're done. And then all of a sudden your chair or someone lets you know like, oh, there's this whole formatting thing that we have to do, which that has happened where it just totally blindsides students, right? And again, it's not that it's that difficult, but it can really be time consuming because you need to, like, again, if you have tables and figures, go through and check all that spacing, make sure your headings are correct. Um, Go
So,
ahead.
yeah, that's a really good segue into the two questions that we have received
Oh,
here.
good.
Um, is there usually a deadline for the formatting processes to ensure the student graduates within the same semester after their defense? Is the first part of the question. And then how long does the process take for many students on average?
Yeah. So, the first question, let me pull up. Whoops, let me see if I can pull up my internet here and show you. So for the first one, yes, we do have graduation deadlines. So if you go to Google and like search UNLV graduation deadlines, you'll see right here, like we'll use summer 2024, students completing a thesis, dissertation, or doctoral project. And this will outline for you all of the different deadlines. So it'll have like the date to apply for graduation, last day to apply for graduation, the date, like you must have your defense completed by, whatever date. And then it'll have here this Monday, July 22, last day to submit for format review, and then things like that. And then there's always a date, August 12th here, last date to submit your final document to ProQuest. So what typically ends up happening is if students wait until like the actual deadline sometimes, and these are kind of both answers a little bit together, I guess, but so if you submit during like this deadline period where everyone is probably submitting, because that's how most of us are, we kind of like wait till the last second or wait till, oh shoot, it's due on Monday. So if you do it at that time, it might take a little longer just because we kind of have this flood of documents coming in. But typically, like I say, it's like 4 days max, between when your reviewer sends you, your checklist with what you need to fix. And then typically it takes students maybe 2 days to get that back. And I would say the average student maybe has like 2 rounds of revisions. So that first upload where you send it, they review it, you get your changes back, and then maybe you forgot something, or didn't do something exactly how they wanted it. They'll send you one more time and say, hey, can you please change this one little thing, right? So I would say most students have about 2 rounds of revisions. It's all pretty much based on how prepared the document is before it's submitted. So like the more work you do on the front end of like trying to make sure that everything is how it should be. I hate saying like, oh, it's perfect or whatever, because none of our papers are ever perfect, or there's always something to work on. But for the formatting, like the more work you do before you submit, the faster it is. Like I say, students who don't really know that this is a thing or kind of get blindsided by it, they tend to have like 4 or 5 rounds of revisions because it's like they haven't looked at the manuals, they haven't seen the video, like they haven't looked at anything. But if you take the time beforehand and kind of make sure all those things are in line and where they should be, it's a lot faster. So that's kind of my main tip for that.
Okay, another follow-up question then with
Yeah.
that, and tackling things ahead of time, I guess. So Nikki says, I know you said that we submit after the defense because we need to make edits based on committee feedback, but
Mhm.
are we allowed to submit it before the defense to go ahead and tackle some of these common formatting mistakes ahead of time?
Perfect question. Yes. So you will not submit it via that formal link, right? You won't go to the submission portal. But what we do for students is we call it a pre-format review. And so if you just email me directly or that grad TD email address and just say, I'm working on my thesis or dissertation and I'd like to have someone check it, check my formatting for me before I submit. We love to do that because it's helpful for both us and the student. Like you said, I believe you said Nikki is the student's name. It makes it so that you can get a lot of those fixed before your official submission. So that cuts out a lot of time right there. And we love it because for the same reason, right? We're working with all these different students and documents. So when we get one in that's like pretty much perfect and like, oh, wow, that saves us all a lot of time and headache. So, and that's something we do, for all students. If you have friends or colleagues, that are going through this process also, feel free to tell them, hey, if you email, they'll check out your formatting, because again, it's just helpful for everyone. But what I do is, I go through your document with the actual checklist that we use for the format review, and we do kind of that really thorough check to make sure, that everything is how it should be. And then this way, if you do that pre-format review, we'll have time to schedule an appointment. Like let's say, for example, you get stuck on the page numbers, or it's not, you can't figure it out, or you're not really sure what it is that we're asking you to change. I can meet with you during those office hours and we can kind of go through it together. So that makes it really helpful. But yeah, definitely feel free to do that. But that's just all via like email. You don't have to go through that official submission portal or anything like that.
All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about yet another way that the UNLV has your back and wants to help you through all these processes. Uh, any other notes, Dr. Stevens?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, you reminded me when you said that. Students probably get annoyed, but another thing I tell them all the time is that my team's whole job is to make this process, the formatting process, as stress-free as possible. And like I say, I definitely feel your pain, been there, done that, and I know that after you spend like months, years working on thesis and dissertation, the last thing you want to worry about is page numbers and spacing and this and that. So we really do try our best to help with like any issues you're having. No issue too small. Always feel free to reach out. And like you said, we definitely are here to help. So anything that comes up, just reach out. And we are here to help you get there to the end.
Well, thank you so much for going over all this with us, and thank you for your time and your presentation as well. For those on the call, the slides are in your Canvas course, so you can refer to them at any time. We also, of course, have recorded this, so I will add that to our playlist, and it will be on our YouTube channel for you to refer to later. So thank you again, Dr. Stevens, and thank you everyone who tuned in.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good luck, everyone. And hopefully I'll hear from some of you soon. Just when you reach out, just let me know you were at the writing boot camp. That's how you heard about it. And like I say, we're always here to help. So anything you need, just reach out. Thanks so much for having me.